Disaster Relief Fund to ensure swift aid for disaster victims. Lawmakers suspend plenary in honor of late Ifeanyi Ubah. Federal government moves to produce industry experts in transport sector. And on sport, Team Libya to host Super Eagles of Nigeria ahead of 2025 African Cup of Nations. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved the setting up of a disaster relief fund that is aimed at endangering quick response to victims of disaster across the country. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Wale Edun, stated this on Monday while briefing State House correspondents shortly after the FEC meeting chaired by President Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The fund is to source finances from 3 tiers of government and private sector players for flood victims. This is coming as FEC constituted a technical committee to reassess the dams across the country, and particularly the Alau Dam in Borno State, where scores of lives were lost recently as a result of the flood disaster that ravaged many parts of the state's capital, Maiduguri. The committee is to be chaired by the Minister of Water Resources that has other members. The Federal Executive Council also approved a raft of far-reaching economic policies and infrastructure programs. It endorsed the bill which seeks federal and state collaboration to suspend certain taxes on small businesses and vulnerable populations. Among the taxes to be axed are levies on road haulage, business premise registration, livestock, and markets. The Council okayed the economic stabilization bills to be transmitted to the National Assembly for passage. The bills embody the recommendations of the Presidential Committee on Tax and Fiscal Policy Reforms set up last year by President Bola Tinubu. The committee is headed by a tax expert, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that the current hardship is short-term, while the gains that will accrue therefore will be long-term. He said the citizens' sacrifices will soon usher in an era of enduring economic benefits for all. The president restated his administration's commitment to tackling the country's economic and security challenges, emphasizing the intricate link between the two. President Tinubu spoke at this year's annual national conference of the Nigerian Institute of Management in Port Harcourt, Rivers State capital. The president, who was represented by the head of civil service, Mrs. Didi Wilson-Jack, noted that the security of life and property remain essential for development. And moving on, the 2 chambers of the National Assembly have resumed plenary after a well-deserved long recess. During the recess, committee sittings and series of oversight engagements went on. In the upper chamber, many senators were seen around the National Assembly complex, getting ready for the resumption of the legislative business. Among them was the senator representing Plateau South Senatorial District, Simon Bakolalong, who joined Senate President Godswill Akpabio and his colleagues to resume legislative duties. Senator Lalong, who is Chairman Senate Committee on Agricultural Institutions and Colleges and Deputy Chairman Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, said he was poised to provide greater representation by the rising critical issues concerning the welfare and well-being of his constituents, Plateau and Nigeria at large. And meanwhile, the House of Representatives has suspended plenary in honor of late Senator Ifeanyi Ubah, who passed away during the annual recess of the National Assembly. This act by the House is in line with the tradition of the National Assembly to suspend the first sittings after the death of a federal lawmaker. Plenary resumes on Wednesday, 25th September. Ubah was said to have died after he departed Nigeria for the UK, where he went for an operation. He would have been 53 on September 3rd. The former governor of Abia State and current senator representing Abia North, Orji Uzor Kalu, has urged President Bola Tinubu to provide immediate relief for Nigerians facing increasing economic hardship. Senator Kalu gave the advice while speaking with journalists prior to the resumption of lawmakers from their annual recess in Abuja. Senator Kalu emphasized that the current situation has become unbearable for the citizens, urging the president to act now. While commending the President Tinubu for his courage in implementing necessary economic reforms, Senator Kalu expressed concerns that these measures have brought significant challenges for the populace. The senator took time to address the recent rumors regarding his health, clarifying that he had been away for 2 months to pursue studies, adding that he was in good health. He, however, stressed on the mortality of mankind, saying that death is inevitable. The Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Brigadier General Isha Dogara Ahmed, has urged the scheme's internal auditors to instill the culture of accountability in their official duties. He said it was very important to reinforce the scheme's internal financial control systems to avoid financial losses. Here's the report.
The Director General disclosed this at the opening ceremony of the 2024 NYSC Internal Auditors Workshop with the theme Enhancing Efficiency and Effectiveness of Financial Operations in the Internal Control System, the role of Internal Auditor, held in Abuja. Speaking through the Director of Procurement, Mr. Chris Jimba, General Ahmed urged them to ensure that the scheme's financial practices adhere to the highest ethical and compliance standards. He added that a weak internal control system could lead to severe consequences, including mismanagement of funds and financial losses due to lack of accountability. The Acting Director, Internal Audit, Dr. Levi Ajim, in his welcome address, said the workshop was a stepping stone towards strengthening the internal control system of the scheme in order to safeguard its financial resources. He said NYSC internal auditors play crucial roles in the financial operations of the scheme. Therefore, there was need for their competence to be periodically updated for optimal discharge of their responsibilities. In his goodwill message, the Accountant General of the Federation, who was represented by the Director, Audit Monitoring, Mr. Chizia Peter, tasked the participants to promote professional ethics and self-confidence. He also admonished them to key into government reforms and also improve on the control of the financial management system as they promote synergy for the achievement of organization goals.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has congratulated the pioneer set of students of the Federal University of Transportation, Daura, Katsina State, urging them to take advantage of this unique opportunity to acquire knowledge with all sense of diligence to contribute their role towards the development of Nigeria's economy. The president gave the urge during the matriculation ceremony of the pioneer 478 students of the university in Daura, Katsina State at the weekend. Represented by the Minister of Transportation, Senator Said Ahmed Al-Khali, President Tinubu said they are the first set of students to receive training at a university level in a specialized University of Transportation that is the first of its kind in Nigeria and West Africa sub-region. He said that the constituted governing council for the university has been charged with disseminating specialized knowledge in all modes of transportation to produce Nigeria experts that will utilize policy, law, and industry practice to make the transport sector the pride of Nigeria economy. The president also commended the CCECC Nigeria Limited for multidimensional support and commitment in building the university as part of its corporate social responsibility to Nigeria, and for extending special support towards successful conduct of this matriculation ceremony. The Minister of Transportation praised Katsina State Hospitality for supporting the university's establishment as he reflected on the progress made since his visit in October 2023. Al-Khali further disclosed that the institution has been captured by the Tertiary Education Fund (TETFund) intervention for the execution of capital projects against the 2025 financial year. Also speaking, the Emir of Daura, Alhaji Farouk Umar Farouk, said he is very happy with the establishment of the university in Daura, saying it is one of the few that exist in all of Africa. He commended the leadership style of the Vice Chancellor, appreciating him and his management for laying a very strong foundation, and urged the matriculating students to be of good behavior during their academic session in the university. You're watching ASO Television News. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 392 Also on StarTimes TV channel 127, Free TV channel 507. We are also on the UHF band on channel 38. And still to come, Team Libya to host Super Eagles of Nigeria ahead of 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. Details of these and more stories after the break.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, StarTimes Terrestrial Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, People's TV Channel 285, and UHF Channel 38.
Moving on, the Nigerian Association of Women Journalists, NAWAJ FCT, has appealed to President Bola Tinubu to consider the appointment of a minister for the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. NAWAJ reserved that the ministry, which had remained rudderless for over 6 months, is missing out in the management of humanitarian crisis arising from the recent flood disaster in some states of the Federation. The NAWAJ FCT, rising from its Congress of Saturday, 24 September 2024, issued a communique covering a number of issues affecting the nation and the Union, including current review of Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, VAP Act, general insecurity and prevailing social vices. The Congress, chaired by Comrade Basi Itaikpang, also featured a training session on the topic, Using Technology for Women Empowerment Amidst Economic Challenges. Vice Chairman FCT Correspondent Chapo Comrade Grace Ike and the Executive Director of Hope Raisers Global Foundation, Agonimi David Ime, spoke on the topic, stressing that it is essential for female journalists to explore new avenues and harness the potential of technology to enhance their work. The Congress was supported by a non-governmental organization, African Health Budget Network, which underscored the need to ensure persons with disabilities are carried along in all activities. As the global health community intensifies its call to tackle antimicrobial resistance, Nigeria is facing a growing challenge. The rise of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, MDR-TB, is increasingly prevalent strain of TB, undermining efforts to control the disease and posing significant threats to public health. In this report, Lois Sambo looks at the impact of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis and its increasing infection rates, complicating treatment efforts. The report.
In the year 2015, I started having symptoms of malaria, weakness of the body, loss of appetite, loss of weight. In the night, I would be sweating anyhow. I didn't know what was really wrong with me. But then I took malaria treatment. After the malaria treatment, the night sweat refused to go. I was coughing, and before you know, I started observing blood in the sputum. So I went to Nyanya Dot Clinic, did the test, and the test came out positive to tuberculosis. Further examinations on that test showed that it was MDR-TB, that's multi-drug resistant tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis, often referred to as TB, remains a leading global health threat as the deadliest infectious disease. According to the World Health Organization, in 2022 alone, an estimated 1.3 million people lost their lives to tuberculosis. Initially, multi-drug resistant TB was attributed to patients who failed to take their medication correctly or complete their prescribed treatment regimen. However, today, multi-drug resistant TB poses an even graver public health concern.
It is a form of tuberculosis that is resistant to one or more of the first-line drugs. In some instances, somebody can get infected with a resistant germ directly. So we have, WHO says about 4.3% of new incidents of tuberculosis in Nigeria, they are multi-drug resistant. That means that the person has never had TB before. The first TB is having is multi-drug resistant. But we also have instances where 15 to 25% of previously diagnosed TB cases can turn multi-drug resistant if they don't complete their medication as prescribed. The minimum treatment, as of today, the minimum treatment for tuberculosis is 6 months.
I spent 4 months intensive in the hospital. So for those 4 months, I was away from my family. The total duration of the disease treatment was 20 months. When I returned from the hospital, the FCT disease program gave me another letter to confirm to my employer that I was okay for them to take me back. I met with the head of HR, who told me that, in clear terms, that the bank cannot take you back because if any staff comes down with this particular disease, it will be as if he contacted it from you. That day I was so downcasted. I was so angry, knowing that I was going home to meet my wife and baby that I could no longer provide for.
The global health community is on high alert due to the rise of multi-drug resistant TB, which complicates treatment efforts and threatens to undermine decades of progress.
Drug-resistant TB or multi-drug resistant TB is a typical example of antimicrobial resistance. The effect of antimicrobial resistance in public health is that we now need more resources to take care of ailments, to take care of what would otherwise be treated with simple medication. You may now need stronger, more expensive medication to treat them. Maybe medication that you would use a treatment for like a day or two. You now need longer days, to handle them, And then, because of resistance as well, there are instances where those people that were not vulnerable to the disease, they become more vulnerable to it.
Dr. Polycarp Salam, an epidemiologist with the African Field Epidemiology Network, AFINET, explains that antimicrobial resistance is a complex and urgent public health crisis that requires a multifaceted approach to tackle.
The policies, I think the policies are there. It's just the enactment of the policies. The pattern medicine vendors are supposed to be triple checked. The drug hawkers are supposed to be triple checked. Counterfeit drugs are supposed to be triple checked by, of course, NAFDAC. Then, of course, to us, there's no reason why you should self-medicate.
The rising threat of antimicrobial resistance, including multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, calls for coordinated global action. By being more mindful of how we consume antibiotics and adhering to medication guidance, we can collectively help mitigate the impact of antimicrobial resistance and protect future generations. Lois Abasambo.
The American billionaire and philanthropist Mr. Bill Gates is calling rich governments to increase aid assistance to Africa and for debt forgiveness for overburdened countries to accelerate progress in the SDGs. This is a welcome call by the Microsoft founder and the Research Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, CARCED, as they join their voices to the clarion call to the rest of the world. The rescue of African states and others in the global south is urgent as the combination of post-COVID economic crisis, climate change, and lack of accountability have driven unprecedented inflation levels, poverty, and inequality, hurling more houses and families into poverty and worsening inequality globally while threatening the progress in the SDGs. CARCED believes that Gates' appeal for increased aid and debt relief is not only timely but essential, as increased financial support can empower African nations to invest in critical infrastructure, improve access to essential services, and implement sustainable development initiatives that address immediate needs and long-term human capital deficits in the continent. And on sport, Team Libya has opted to host Group D leaders Nigeria at the Matthias Benina Stadium in their 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying match day 4 encounter. The facility is located in the city of Benina, some 19 kilometers outside the country's second city, Benghazi, known previously as Hugo Chavez Stadium. The stadium is a 10,000 capacity facility with an artificial turf. Both countries will do a match day 3 battle at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium, Uyo, on Friday, 11th October, before they clash in the city at the edge of the Mediterranean Sea on Tuesday, 15th October. While the match in Uyo will kick off at 5 p.m., the battle in Benina will commence at 8 p.m. Nigerian time. Libya remained bottom of Group D after 2 rounds of matches, following a 1-1 at home to Rwanda, a game that was played at the Tripoli International Stadium, and a 1-2 loss to the Cheetahs of Benin Republic in Abuja. Nigeria topped the poll with 4 points after a 3-0 spanking of Benin Republic in Uyo on match day 1 and a scoreless draw with the Rwandans and Amavubi in Kigali on match day 2. And that's the bulletin, but before we go, let's take a look at one of our major stories. We told you that the Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved the setting up of a disaster relief fund that is aimed at endangering quick response to victims of disaster across the country. And that's the news. I am Princess Sabura Usman. Many thanks for watching. Good afternoon.